What's shaking, my friends? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Shay, and today we're going to talk about what I read in the month of February. So I actually did better in February than I did in January. I topped the amount of pages that I read. I read 12 books, DNF'd 1 book, and for a total of 4,292 pages. So not too shabby, not my best, but certainly not my worst. Also, if you want to know how I did do very well on my February jar challenges. The goal is to read 1 book out of each of these jars that I pull on my TBR, and I did. I completed that this month, and I'm super, super happy for me. So we're gonna go ahead and start talking about the 1 book that I did not rate because it's nonfiction. I don't like to rate my nonfiction, but I enjoyed it very immensely, and that's Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I read this book. It's a short novella about a man writing basically a letter to his son, talking about racism and what goes along with that in the American culture, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I highly recommend it. It's just a little bit over 100 pages, I believe, so a very short read, but a very impactful read. Now we will talk about my DNF first, and then move in from lowest rated books to my highest rated book of the month. Very sadly and very disappointingly, I did not want to DNF books this month because I was doing something with my book club where I just, I wanted to read. I didn't want to DNF. I was in a kind of a competition, and I'm a very big competitor. Did not want to DNF a book. But I just absolutely positively could not go on in this book. And I want to say that I read 40% of it, and this was a very big letdown because I was looking forward to this so very much, and that's going to be A Big Ship at the Edge of the Universe by Alex White. So this book has definitely an audience. I want to get into more sci-fi this year. I was very excited about this. This follows our main character, and she's kind of like this racer. Think NASCAR, but in space. And something happens, and she basically gets accused of murder, and then she goes on the run, and then there's this other crew that she joins up with, and they're trying to hunt down this lost spaceship. Let me tell you, number 1, this book read very young to me. It is adult. It read more young adult, which is fine, completely fine, but my expectations going in were that this was going to be adult. So already my expectations were not met. I also could not stand our main character. I don't think she's meant to be likable, and some characters that aren't meant to be likable I continue to read, and it's fine. But I could not continue to read from her point of view any longer. I just could not. And so sadly I had to put the book down. I don't think the plot moved fast enough for me as well. I wasn't really intrigued with the other characters either because we're following this other character too that just didn't pique my interest. And so I sadly put it down, and this is probably the most sad I've been about DNFing a book. So now let's get into my 2-star reads. Now normally I don't rate books 2 stars because I will DNF before I rate a book 2 stars. But like I said, I was in a competition this month. I had to read some books, and I was trying not to DNF. So these books I did finish, but I just did not like. So the lowest book on the totem pole is a very beloved book here on BookTube, and that's going to be The Wicker King by Kay Ankrum. I also understand why people like this book. I just did not. It is basically the exploration of mental health. And number 1, this is not my genre. It is not my genre. And so I want to preface that. That's probably what ruined my enjoyment of the book. But there are so many great reviews out there that I had to give it a shot. And I gave it 1, and it just didn't work for me. So we're following our 2 main characters, and they have this bromance. And what it turns out to be is just they're from opposite sides of the tracks. One is very popular, one is not, and there's some mental health aspects that continue to go on, and it has that the book gets darker, the pages get darker as you go on because it kind of gets more into the mental health as you go on. I cannot spoil the book because there are spoilers. The little twist in the plot was not original. It was very not original. I didn't care for the ending, and it just was not a book for me. I enjoy books about mental health if I'm in the mood to read books about mental health, but this one just did not work for me, sadly. Another very big disappointment for me is going to be another 2-star read, and that's going to be The Measure by Nikki Early. Let's listen. Everybody loves this book except for me. I have issues. So, of course, this book, the premise is everybody wakes up one morning and they have a string on their doorstep, and it turns out that that string on their doorstep and how long it is kind of correlates to how long they have left to live. And so we're exploring, what would you do? How do you act? What are the emotions that go along with how you would feel if you knew how long you had left to live? So we're following multiple characters in this. I think there's like 7 or 8. I can't recall. Kind of living their life with them and how they feel and how they react to these strings. So number 1, as a fantasy sci-fi reader, okay, because this is more literary, this is kind of like a dystopian setting because the whole world is not ending, like we're not in a different world, but we are in a different world. Because these, strings and knowing when you're going to live has changed the way of America. It has changed the life completely. And coming from a person who reads dystopian and has read it a lot, this is the most unrealistic book that there's just so many plot holes. And that bothered me first and foremost. The plot holes bothered me. You cannot tell me that if we woke up and we knew we were going to die, like, we're just all gonna go la-di-da-di-da, it's fine. No. Luckily, as later on, as we got into the book, it did address some of the plot holes from the beginning of the book, but there were still a lot of very glaring plot holes. Number 2, the characters that we're following are so bland and boring. Like, I feel like there needed to be some other dimensions to these characters. I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. But I could see how, if you are a literary fiction reader, which I think this is marketed towards a lot of literary fiction readers, that you would like this because you haven't read anything like this, probably. And coming from somebody who has read a lot of things like this, and I question things, and I want things to be realistic and not have a lot of plot holes, this is it. I can get down with plot holes. I can. As long as I'm entertained in everything else in the story, but I just wasn't entertained here. I was not entertained. I just didn't feel for these characters and the plot holes. Just no. It's a no for me. Now, let's get into my only 3-star read. I had a lot of 4-star reads this month, but my only 3-star read was going to be Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. This is a mystery thriller that a lot of people have recommended, that I've heard a lot about on BookTube. Okay, so Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. We're following our main character, POV. She's been put in prison for having something to do with one of her best friend's murders back when they were 16. Now it's been so many years later, and her ex-boyfriend are accused of murdering her best friend, and then she goes to jail and she gets out, but her ex-boyfriend escapes from jail, and then a new body is found in this day and time. So we're trying to figure out what actually happened in the past, what has happened now in the future with this new body. And I have to tell you that this did nothing. I mean, it's not that it didn't do anything for me, but I read a lot of mystery thrillers. It did not do anything original or new for me. I guess the twist very early on. So I think that's part of what just detracted from my enjoyment. And even with me guessing the twist, I also did not like our main character. So she was very unlikable to me. I don't know that she was meant to be likable, but she did not grow on me. And some unlikable characters I can get down with, but she is also one that I did not fare well with this month. Now moving on to our 4 stars, and I'm going to be talking about Playing Nice by J.P. Delaney. And this was a very, very, very interesting read for me. I really enjoyed this one. We're following this couple who basically, a man knocks on their door one day and says, "Hey, did you know that your son is not your son, he's my son?" And basically their sons were switched at birth, and you're trying to figure out, how did they get switched at birth? Did somebody switch them on purpose? And you're just following these characters as they go through this journey. There are some twists and turns. I really enjoyed my time reading this, and I would highly recommend it as a mystery thriller. I enjoyed it. The next book that I rated 4 stars is going to be What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. This was a very much anticipated release for me. it did not disappoint. So this is following our main character, and something happened to her when she was younger. She was assaulted and she sent a man away to jail, and he has died. And so she goes back to her hometown. There are some new mysteries that are dug up. We're trying to figure out what actually happened in the past. Again, this is a premise that's not new, but I really enjoyed my time with this. I liked the characters in here. I enjoyed where the story went. I don't think, again, that it was something super fresh, super new, but I still enjoyed my time with this book. Then I picked up Playing with Fire, which is the second book in the Skullduggery Pleasant series by Derek Landy. I gave the first book 5 stars. I gave this one 4 stars. Very, very much enjoyable with this one as well. I listened to it on audio. Highly recommend this series. It's YA series. I think maybe I've called it middle grade before, but it is YA. It's a YA series, very action-packed, very kind of twisty-turny series that I think is so whimsical and so cute, and I think that anybody can enjoy it. It follows our main character, and she gets whisked away into this magical world she did not know exists, and she has a skeleton companion, and they get in all kind of hijinks, and highly recommend that series. The next book I gave 4 stars to is going to be A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This book was originally self-published and then got picked up by a publisher, and it's following Dracula's first wife and just kind of how she got turned into a vampire, how she met Dracula, and their life as they move through the centuries. I really enjoyed this a lot better than I thought. I do know that a lot of people praise this book. A lot of people give it 5 stars. I do think I gave it 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. I don't quite buy the extreme hype of it, and I know that she's writing another novel, I think, in this world now that this one has done so well for her. So I may read that one, but I did enjoy this, and I liked the ending. I liked there were some characters that also got introduced towards the middle of the story that I also really liked, and we're just learning about their lives and how things came to be, and I enjoyed it, and I may read the next book that comes out. The next 4-star book I read was going to be Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter. And now I have been caught up in the Burning series, and now I am like everybody else, and I am patiently waiting for book 3, or not so patiently waiting for book 3. This is the second book in the series that starts with the Rage of Dragons, and I love this story. In Rage of Dragons, we're following our main character, Tao, and he has been wronged, and his father has been killed, and he is out for revenge. There is some magical elements in here, and he is trying to power himself up to make him more powerful so he can just kill and have revenge for his father's death and some other things that have been done to wrong him. And I enjoyed this. I think that I enjoy the first book more because I like that kind of coming of age story. I like watching them grow, and now in the second book he's already grown and done all of that, and not to say that he doesn't continue to grow as a character, but he is now very strong, very powerful, and we're kind of just moving on to more war things and political things that are going on, and I enjoyed it. I cannot wait for book 3. Again, I'm maybe not so patiently waiting for book 3. I also gave 4 stars again to my reread of Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. I'm reading it in preparation for Lightbringer that comes out in July. Everybody that I know thinks Golden Sun is the best in the series, and this is the one that's 5 stars for them. I tend to disagree. I like Morningstar better than Golden Sun, and so I can't wait to read Morningstar. Not that this is not fantastic. I loved Golden Sun just like I loved it the first time. I love the Red Rising series. I think that it is a fantastic sci-fi series that follows our main character Darrow, and he is also on a revenge mission as this is following a caste system, and he is a red, which is very, very low, and his people have been basically enslaved to mine this element, and they are starved in order to terraform the other colonies. And then he realizes, hey, guess what? You've been lied to. And so he has to also power up to kind of defeat the enemy. And lots of political maneuvers in here, lots of twists and turns. A lot of people don't like Darrow as a character. We are following just his point of view, but I happen to like Darrow, and of course my favorite is Severo, just like everybody else, but I do like Darrow. I did enjoy my reread of Golden Sun. now on to my 2 5-star reads. My first 5-star read is going to be Bright We Burn by Kirsten White. This will finish up this trilogy for me that starts with And I Darken, and I loved this. I loved the ending to this trilogy. I can't give a lot away, but this YA series has become one of my favorite YA series. It's a gender-bent Vlad the Impaler retelling, and I loved it. We're following, you know, our main character and her brother, who have basically been sold off by their father to the enemy, so they are raised behind enemy lines. And as they grow up behind enemy lines, there are some things that the daughter is really wanting to be loyal to her home, and the brother wants to be loyal to where they grew up, because, you know, they've found friendship in the prince of the kingdom, and they have just found, you know, he has found a family over there as well, because that's where they spent most of their childhood and how they grew up there. And so it's a very political, it's very like back and forth. I loved the conclusion of this. There was a time jump in here. Like, normally I don't like time jumps, you know, especially when they do it at the end of the book to show you kind of how things have gone on as time passes. I normally don't like that. I just like to think in my mind of what goes on, but this was very well done. I gave this final book 5 stars. Fantastic. So I gave the first book 5 stars, I gave the second book 4, and I gave the final book 5 stars. Absolutely, positively, really, highly recommend the series if you like political fantasy. And my favorite book of the month is no surprise. Well, actually, it kind of is a surprise to me, because I didn't think I would like it as much as I did, but that's going to be The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. So we're following our main character, and she basically is a real witch, but she puts out these YouTube videos where she's pretending to be a witch, and she gets contacted one day by this, you know, these people that say, hey, guess what? We know that you're really a real witch, and we need you to come and try to teach these children that we have that don't have any witches in their lives how to be witches. And so she goes there, and there's a found family, of course. There's a romance, of course, with this grumpy man, and it's fantastic. And the kids are lovely. And I mostly likely enjoy it when I love the characters, and I love the found family. I loved this found family because I love the characters. So 100% recommend that book. All right, that is it. That is what I read in the month of February. And I'm happy with my reading in February, hoping to read a lot better in March. We shall see. Let me know what you guys have read lately in the comments down below. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read, what you thought about them, and I will catch you guys later.